Hi guys, how are you all doing? Welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for being here. And welcome back to Bookmas, to the second video of Bookmas, which is basically my gigantic December TBR. We have 25 books to discuss in today's video, and who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? This is not a TBR video. This is basically a pile of possibilities because I'm not going to finish. I'm not going to read 25 books, but I want to show you everything that I am truly interested in to read this December. I am going to divide this stack into two, because I have a couple of books here that are specifically Christmas or Christmassy books, and I definitely want to read these books in the days, weeks leading up to Christmas, just to help me a little bit getting into the Christmas mood, though usually I don't really need any help. But anyways, I love Christmas books, so it's this pile. And also I have another pile here that are just normal books, normal meaning non-Christmassy books, everything, fantasy, historical fiction, historical romance, romantasy, literary fiction, and also a classic that I am just dying to read before the end of the year. For now, I am going to move these aside because I need a little bit of space to show you the Christmassy books. And remind me that I also have a couple of books on my phone because I made a list of a couple of books that I ordered, but they are not here yet because I ordered them used and I ordered them from overseas. They just haven't arrived yet, and I hope I will not forget to mention them in this video. So I'm just gonna put my phone on the top of this pile. Now, when it comes to the Christmassy books, I do have a lot of books. Kind of like 50% of these books are romances, contemporary and historical romances. But to me, this is the season kind of to read this kind of books, but it's not all about that. I have a couple of other type of books if you are not into historical romance or romance. The very first one is Snow Ghost. This is a picture book that I am already dying to read because the art in this book is amazing. I will include it in one of my Christmas vlogs, and I will show you just a couple of this beautiful art in that video. The gold foiling and the story itself, because I have a feeling that this story will be about belonging. I have a feeling that it is going to get to me. And you guys know, I mentioned it in so many of my other videos, that one of my favorite books, my favorite book, my number one book, is actually a picture book, The Wanderer by Peter von den Ende. So picture books somehow just have that effect on me. So it's definitely something that I am reading this December. And also I have a book here. Yeah, this is the only one that's actually going to be a reread because I read this book, The Afterlife of Holly Chase, last year, the first time. And this is a YA story and a reimagination of the Christmas Carol in more like a modern setting where Scrooge is technically a teenage girl. And oh my god, I adored this book last year. This book put me into the festive spirit, and that's what I want again. And the ending of this book was perfect. I don't know when was the last time when a YA book had this effect on me, because usually I don't really read YA anymore because I tend to need a little bit more. But this one, oh guys, this one was so good. It's such a light and beautiful Christmas story. I highly recommend. Pick it up. If you have not read it yet, pick it up. Next, we have this beautiful Barnes & Noble special edition of The Nutcracker. You guys know, because I share this book in many of my videos, that this is something that I bought this year because I just couldn't resist this beautiful maroon cover and also the gold foiling. Now this is something that probably I will read during Christmas because I am going to the Nutcracker ballet, the Boston Ballet, and one of you recommended that I actually watch the ballet performance first and then I read the book. So that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to the ballet like very close to Christmas. So this is actually something that I'm going to read during Christmas. And there is a pair of ballet shoes. The back of the book, it is just so gorgeous. Nutcracker, gingerbread figurines, ribbons, mice, teddy bear, a doll, the ballet shoes. Wow. What an absolutely gorgeous book. And also the illustrations in the book. It's like, it looks really nice. So I have high expectations when it comes to this book. Many of my English friends actually find it so unbelievable that I don't know the story of the Nutcracker because I never read the book, I never watched the ballet, I never watched any TV shows. I don't know. I genuinely don't know the story. And because it's such a big thing in the English culture, I think it is time to catch up. You know, after like, what, 10 years, it is time to catch up. The next little book on my TBR, or in my pile of possibilities, is Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. I hope that I will like this book. This little book novella, and I know that this is insanely famous, and I know that there is a movie apparently out there that I also want to watch, probably during Christmas. I hope I will like it because unfortunately I DNF'd and I unhauled an other short story collection by Claire Keegan, but this one I want to love because I do appreciate Claire Keegan's writing, and I hope I will like this one. This little thing was very expensive, so I hope I will like this one. And then the last book before we hit the contemporary romances and also the historical romances is A December to Remember by Jenny Bayliss. And I know that this author writes a lot of contemporary romances taking place during Christmas, but this will be my first book from her. And because I have so many different romance books on my TBR, I wanted one that's got nothing to do with, you know, romantic relationships. This book is actually about the relationship of three estranged sisters as they are trying to get their inheritance. And of course, the book is taking place during Christmas. So I am really interested in this story. I wanted to read it last year. I bought this book last December, but I just never got around to read it. So I think that this is now the time. And now let's just talk about all the different romance books that I have on my TBR. I actually have two contemporary romance books, and I know that this first one is very, very famous and everybody has such a good opinion about this book, and that is Snowed In by Catherine Walsh. And this is a forced proximity contemporary romance book. Give me snow, give me forced proximity, and give me people who likely, very likely, cannot stand each other, and I am all yours. I have very high expectations when it comes to this book. If you guys read this book, please let me know, and let me know what you think of this book. And the second contemporary romance book is Christmas in the Scottish Highlands, and I found this book through Audible because the audiobook, if you have Audible membership, is actually free. And when I saw this book taking place during Christmas in the Scottish Highlands, I am obsessed with the Scottish Highlands. Last year, no, not last year. Yeah, last year. I went to the UK and I had a beautiful trip in UK and Scotland. With my friend, we went to the Scottish Highlands, and guys, if you've never been to Scotland, and specifically the Scottish Highlands, you have to go there. Put it on your bucket list. You have to go there. I am obsessed with Scotland. I am obsessed with everything that's Scottish. I am obsessed with Scottish men and Scottish accents. So I do have, again, high hopes when it comes to this book, and you bet that I am going to listen to the audiobook, and I hope that the narrator will have a really nice Scottish accent because I am here for it. And this is also a grumpy sunshine. The man will be the grump and the girl will be the sunshine kind of romance, and I cannot wait to start this book. Maybe maybe soon, maybe I will include this book in my very first Christmas vlog. But I want to include every single one of these books in my Christmas vlog, the first one, so I don't know, but oh God, please work for me. All right, this next book, I actually put it into the contemporary romance pile, but it's not really a contemporary romance because there is magic and there are witches in this book. So, you know, I don't know, it probably doesn't fit the contemporary romance genre. But The Wedding Witch, this is the third book in this series published by Erin Sterling. I read the two other books and I just keep forgetting the title of those books, The Ex-Hex and also The Kiss Curse, and I really like those books. They are not heavy, they are very light and fluffy, and it's just a good times, you know, and sometimes that's all you need. And this book is very short. I adore the font size, and this is a new release. This only came out a couple of weeks ago, I think. And in this series we have three brothers, and we got to know the stories of the first two brothers, and he is the third brother who lives very reclusively in his own like little mansion, and he basically looks like a beast because he doesn't shave, and I really liked him in the second book. So I cannot wait to get to know his romantic partner and read about how they get together and all about their romance. So this is also a book that I really want to read like very soon. And then the three historical romances. And considering how obsessed I am with historical romance this year, I've been a good girl because I only put 3 historical romances on my December TBR. Well, at least these are the Christmassy ones. I have a couple of other ones that are like historical romances, just not Christmassy ones, okay? The first book in this little pile that I want to show you is Once Upon a Winter's Eve by Tessa Dare. You guys know how I feel about Tessa Dare and her characters and her love stories, and this is a very short Christmas novella, and apparently in this book the hero is a spy, and I am here for that. Lisa Kleypas does this as well, and also Tessa Dare when they have a little bit of action in their historical romances. I really like that. I've read a couple of other novellas by Tessa Dare, and I also think that she does such an excellent job when she writes these shorter stories. You know, it's tricky, especially like when it comes to Tessa Dare, because she includes smut in her books, and when you write a very short book, the smut cannot overpower the characters and the relationship, and I don't think she does that. It actually works very well. Whatever this woman does, I am here for it. I adore her books, and I cannot believe that we're not gonna get the next one till like what, 2026? That's almost like torture. And that book is in my favorite series, Juke Meets Girl, but whatever. The two other novellas and novella collections that I have, the first one is How the Jukes Stole Christmas, and this has 4 Christmas novellas by these incredibly famous historical romance authors. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I've only read from Tessa Dare because one of the stories in here is from Tessa Dare. Then we have another one from Sarah MacLean, and I've heard of her name before, but I never read anything by Sarah MacLean, so it will be a perfect chance for me to sample her work a little bit. And then also we have Sophie Jordan, never read anything by her, and also Joanna Shoup. I hope that that's how you say her name. I am dying to sample the works of these ladies, and then if I like the way they write and their characters and the love stories that they craft, then I will pick up a couple of their full-length novels. And last but not least, A Holiday by Gaslight by Mimi Matthews. And I am really interested to read something from this author because apparently she writes romances. Stories, I should say. I don't want to say romances, but stories and characters that are very similar to North and South. Apparently, this is just again something that I heard because I never read anything by her, but apparently her male characters resemble Mr. Thornton in North and South. Say less, okay? Say less. I am reading 2 of her books. Again, very short little novellas. Okay, now let's just talk about this second gigantic pile of books, because as much as I love Christmas and as much as I love Christmas romances, historical romances, whatever, Christmas stories, classic, again, whatever, I cannot read those books only non-stop. That is going to put me in a reading slump. I think that many of you by now know how I read. I always need different stimuli. It is impossible for me to read one genre and one topic for a prolonged amount of time. So I included a couple of other books that I need in my life. And the very first one, of course, is Wuthering Heights. Guys, I cannot wait to know what this story is about. Again, just like with the Nutcracker, I know certain things. I know the name Heathcliff, I know the name Kathy, and I know that this is a revenge story and it's gothic. I know the basics, but I don't know the actual story, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to read this book. I wanted to start reading this book on the train ride home from New York, right? But I said, no, this is something that I want to read in the winter. I really want to sink my teeth into a couple of classics, a couple of fantasies and historical books, like, you know, that are longer and perfect for the cold winter nights. And I think that Wuthering Heights will be one of these books. And next is a tiny little literary fiction book translated from Japanese, A Diary of a Void by Emi Yagi. This was a very famous feminist book in Japan, apparently sold millions, and I really want to know what the rage is about, and I do want to read a little bit of more translated fiction. And this book has such an interesting premise based on the synopsis, because in this book our female character, I guess that she will be a little bit of a unhinged female character, because she pretends to be pregnant because she is the only female in the office where she works at, and apparently her male colleagues, like, they really look down at her and they get her to do all these menial female tasks in the office. And one day she just has enough and she's like, I cannot do these things anymore, I'm pregnant. I really want to know where this story and this character is going to take us. Next, I have 3 romantices, fantasy romances on my little list, because this year to me was not fantasy romance / romantasy year. Last year I read so many, oh my god, like at least 60 plus fantasy romance books, but this year, no, I just couldn't find one that I liked. So I decided that I am going to reread my favorite fantasy romance of all times, and that is Swordheart by T. Kingfisher. I am going to include this book in one of my vlogs. I will actually try my best to include every single book that I read in one of my vlogs, so you guys will know my opinion about these books, because most of these books I will read now in December the first time. But this one I can already recommend to you guys. I am absolutely obsessed with this book. This is not romantasy. I would say that this is fantasy romance. And when I say that this is fantasy romance, I mean that yes, there is a romance, yes, there is a relationship, but also there is a beautiful fantasy world that is very interesting, and I adore it. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, the male character in this book is named Sarkis. And in the audiobook, the narrator narrates Sarkis as a Scottish guy. And I already have the audiobook because I bought it like years ago when I first read this book, and I am obsessed with it. I am obsessed with the audiobook, so maybe I will listen to the audiobook actually. And while we're talking about T. Kingfisher, let me just show you the other book that I got from her, Bryony and the Roses, and this is T. Kingfisher's Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is her version. Now she's doing it because she's basically retelling every single fairy tale, but she puts this very dark and twisted touch to these books. And this is Beauty and the Beast. We have also Thornhedge, that was the Sleeping Beauty, right? And next year she has a book coming out. I know because I'm already working on a video that's like anticipated 2025 releases, and it's called Hemlock and Silver, and it is the dark retelling of Snow White. And I really want to catch up with her retellings because I do adore them. I want to read Bryony and Roses this year. And next I also have Radiance on my list. I know that this is not a very hyped book, but people who read it, they tend to have a very good opinion about this book, and specifically when it comes to the relationship between the two characters. This has the enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers, I'm not sure, I think enemies to lovers plot, and again trope, I should say, sorry, and I also like that, so I cannot wait to get to Radiance. Now, the other book that I am reading by Mimi Matthews is The Lost Letter, and this is specifically the book that was recommended to me as kind of like a North and South-esque book, where the male character is very much like Mr. Thornton. Now, if this is your first time here, you probably don't understand like North and South, North and South. You just cannot stop talking about North and South. But North and South was the very first English classic that I read in my life in the original language, and I am absolutely freaking obsessed with that book, and I am obsessed with the TV show, and I want books that give me the same feeling as North and South. But though, probably it's impossible. Probably it's impossible, but I am looking, and I have very high expectations when it comes to The Lost Letter. Next, two historical fictions. I am working on a winter book recommendations video, and as I was digging through my bookshelf to try to find the books that I want to recommend to you guys, I've come across these two historical fictions, and I adore both of these books, and I need to reread them. And one of them is The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. This takes place in the 1600s in the Netherlands. And guys, when I picked up this book, I picked it up because of the cover, because again, like, can we look at that beautiful cover? I mean, you look at that cover and you immediately want to read this book. And also it takes place, well, at least one part of the book takes place in winter, and it has such a beautiful atmosphere and just a little bit of suspense to it. And when I started this book, I couldn't put it down. That's how obsessed I was with this book. The synopsis and actually what the story gives you, it's very different. So this book surprised me the best way possible. And the next historical fiction that I am absolutely obsessed with and I want to reread is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. This was the first book that I read by Maggie O'Farrell, not Hamnet, this one. But I understand the rage. I understand the rage when it comes to Maggie O'Farrell, and this book, one of the best freaking historical fiction books that I've ever read in my life. This book follows the life of Lucrezia di Medici, who was the Duchess of Ferrara. Unfortunately, for a very short time. She was 13 when she married the Duke of Ferrara. I mean, her father, her family basically made her marry the guy, and by the age of 16, so 3 years later, she was unfortunately dead. And the Duke ordered a portrait of her, his wife, and I believe that the book cover is actually the original portrait of Lucrezia. And what Maggie O'Farrell did in this book to tell the story of this young girl, wow, just wow. I am rereading this book. Period. But then I look at the next one and I feel a little bit bad, though I shouldn't feel bad for reading books, certainly. But then I look at this book, Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, that I never read and I really want to. And I kind of feel that this is what I should read before I reread anything else from her. But maybe I will get to both of these books. I have no idea, but She's such a fantastic writer. I am kind of planning to go through her entire backlist because this lady cannot recommend. Recommend? What? Cannot disappoint. What am I talking about? What am I talking about? Oh my god. And the fantasy book that I actually have on my list is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. All honesty, this book was not really on my TBR, but I am craving to read fantasy, but not fantasy romance, just simply fantasy, maybe with a little bit of a romantic subplot. I mean, we know how Brandon Sanderson does this, right? But I feel again a little bit confused. Maybe you guys should help me out because I started reading Mistborn, you know, the first trilogy, and I read the first book and it's good. I mean, come on, it's Brandon Sanderson, but I am not feeling that book and I am not really feeling that story. And I made a mistake because I forced myself through the first book. I should have just solved the DNF that book and then come back to it when I'm in a better mood, when I'm in a different mood, but I didn't. I forced myself through that book during the summer and now I'm just not in the mood anymore to pick up the other two books in the trilogy. So I was thinking that maybe I read a standalone for now, book from him. And I know that he says himself that Elantris is not really his best work and his masterpiece because this was the first book that he got published, right? But I'm kind of in the mood. I'm kind of in the mood just to read a fantasy, again, not fantasy romance, just a fantasy standalone. And I think that this is going to be Elantris. Okay, now, the couple of books that I want to mention, I will put them on the screen because they are not here yet. The first one, this is actually a Christmassy book, and this is Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. Just like I said, I don't really want to read Christmassy romances for like 2-3 weeks, so I decided to pick up a Sherlock Holmes story. And this is not a long one. I believe that this is just a novella. And I ordered this one used. I ordered this book in October and it is still not here. This is driving me nuts. I do hope that they're going to deliver it. Okay, the other books that I ordered is The Age of Wonders by Geraldine Brooks. I never read anything by this author, but her books sound so good. They really interest me. And I selected this one because this is historical. It's the 1600s, I believe. And in this book, the plague visits the English countryside. And apparently there is something to do with also witches in this book. Or a housemaid who is accused of being a witch. I don't know, but it sounds so interesting and I adore that cover, so of course I put it on my list. The next book, oh my god, I am so excited about this one, and this is the one that I ordered from the UK because I cannot stand the US cover, and that is the newest release from Elif Shafak, There Are Rivers in the Sky. And this is historical because Elif Shafak writes historical stuff, right? I mean, she usually has a historical timeline and a contemporary timeline, and in this book she got two historical timelines. One of them is taking place in Mesopotamia, one of them is taking place in Victorian London, and that's like a hello say less situation to me. And then also one of them is in the modern timeline in, ooh, I don't remember the city. I'm sorry, I don't remember the city. Is it London? I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. But what really got me about this story is that this whole book, this whole story is told by a drop of water that connects the people and the storylines and the timelines in this book. Come on, come on. You know, she did something similar in the Island of Missing Trees. I just keep talking about that book because it is one of my favorite books of all times. When the story is told by a fig tree and not actual people, and I love it. And I love it. It just really works for me, so I cannot wait to read this book. Whew, wow, 25 books, 25 books. It is not going to happen, but I do think that I have a lot of fantastic books on my list. And even if I cannot finish them in December, that's fine. I will start January and I will start the new year with a couple of fantastic books. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Hit share, like, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. I will see you soon with an upcoming video. Bye!